The Andretti name is making its F1 comeback. Following months and months of speculation, the FIA has given Andretti Formula Racing the green light to join the Formula One grid from the 2025-26 season, making it the grid's 11th team. I'm Sam Hall, joined by Jake Boxall Legge, to break down this announcement and what it means going forward. So, Jake, can you just clarify this and clear it up for us? Are Andretti in, or are they not?
Sort of. They've got one foot in the door, certainly. That's the position we're at now. This is subject now to reaching a financial agreement with FOM. So the FIA has effectively approved the entry. Everything that it submitted from a sporting and technical standpoint, the FIA is absolutely happy with. It was in the second phase. There were a few teams looking to join, and it reached the second phase along with three other teams. Those three other teams, which are Rodin, High Tech, and Lucky Sun's team, they've not been put forward any further. So now this is purely between Andretti and Formula One management, which may be the most difficult of all the trials that it's had to go through so far.
And do you think they're likely to reach a commercial agreement with F1, or could there be some stumbling blocks? You say it's the difficult part. What are these stumbling blocks?
Well, first of all, there's been a lot of consternation between the teams and the FIA and FOM, basically wanting a much greater dilution fee, which is the fee that will be shared out with all the existing teams to kind of, subsidize the lack of TV budget and prize money that would be split with an 11th team. So that's the biggest point of consternation. At the moment, it stands at 200 million. So that is the fee that Andretti would have to pay if it was to come into Formula One under the current Concord agreement. The thing is, the teams want that to be 600 million because they believe that the sport has skyrocketed in popularity so much that that's a fair estimation of the money that they would lose with an extra team on board, not just TV and sponsorship money, but also the prize money and things like that as well. So there's quite a few sort of stipulations, and it's how they navigate that very kind of tricky waters, let's say, that is going to be the absolutely crucial part in getting Andretti over the line, because the other teams, they're not keen on having an 11th team. You know, they have their own interests at play. And this is something that, you know, there would need to be something that would persuade them, because even though they don't quite have the final say, FOM does, and the FOM does have the current team's interests at heart.
And you mentioned the teams there. Are these concerns legitimate? Could the teams potentially put a blocker on this move?
It would be difficult to say, actually, because I think, and again, it's tied into the current Concord agreement, and for 2025, actually, that's when all the teams are signed up until the end of. And so if it was for a 2026 entry and FOM and the FIA acquiesced to the team's complaints that the dilution fee isn't enough and it would need to be 600 million, then theoretically, yes, Andretti does have a wealth of funding, and it has sponsors in place, a lot of loyal sponsors that have followed it through IndyCar and things like that. Gamebridge, for example, are known to be one of the sponsors, and they're one of the US's biggest companies. One of the subsidiaries of Group 1001, which has sponsored the 26 car in IndyCar for some time. So they've got the backing, and in theory, it would be it would require something really, really strong to not allow them into Formula One. I think, you know, the regulations even say that 26 cars is the limit, and so, you know, there's grounds for manoeuvre in that particular area.
And Andretti teaming up with General Motors, surely this is something that Formula One wants and Formula One possibly needs in America, especially.
Well, this is a huge car company, and F1 is trying to constantly attract manufacturers, and it's been short of them for some time. We've had 4 manufacturers doing the engines, doing the current powertrain since 2015. The 2026 engine regulations, they're going to be, you know, bringing 2 more manufacturers in via Ford, bringing in Audi as well. But F1's always trying to attract more. It's always looking to bring more of that industry money in, industry expertise. That it would be remiss to say that having GM in the background wouldn't be a huge positive for the team, because it is. And the fact that, it's going to market it with Cadillac, that's a huge US brand as well. And we know it quite well from sports car racing. It's racing in IMSA and with its LMDH project. Moving into Formula One would be a huge positive for it and for the American automotive industry as well. Simply, I guess, as a foil for Ford as well, the Ford and GM battle. You're a Supercars fan, Sam. You've seen that battle play out in Australia. It could very well play out in F1 as well. I think that's what a lot of people want as well. It'd be a nice, interesting undercurrent. So it's a big deal. It really is, and it's something that should count in its favour, certainly.
Bring the Ford and GM battle in on Bathurst week. That's a good one to bring in there. We all like to speculate on these things, so let's delve into that a little bit. How do you think this is going to unfold?
It depends. There have been suggestions that because basically Andretti is looking to come in with a Renault engine deal, whether that's a rebadging or not, it's difficult to say at the moment. We don't know how that agreement has played out. There have been suggestions that the deal is close to elapsing, if not has elapsed. But nonetheless, you would look at Renault. It's supplying only one team. That's its own team. And it would benefit it to have another team on its books, have two sets of data, have links with another car company that could work in a different market as well. So that's one thing that remains to be seen. That's something that needs to play out still. The identity of its engine supplier, how it will unfold. From a personal standpoint, I'd love to see Andretti in Formula One, but I think there's going to be a lot more wrangling between the teams, FOM and Andretti itself. This isn't a done deal yet. You'd certainly hope so. And obviously, if it is approved, they reach the deal with FOM, then they can start to look at interesting things like drivers, for example, and that kind of, add to the silly season that we all know and love.
Now, this seems a bit of a weird one, and you'll be able to clear this up. Is it unusual that the FIA has announced this before a commercial agreement with F1 and Andretti is in place?
Given this context, no. And this is because FOM and the FIA haven't necessarily seen eye to eye on this whole process. This process was opened up by the FIA, not FOM. And although FOM is the commercial rights holder of Formula One, the FIA is the governing body. And so it's up to the governing body to make that decision and look at how the team operates, through its own scrutineering and applying the regulations that it itself writes. That's the FIA's prerogative, and the FIA has seen a team that is clearly up to the task of Formula One. There's been a lot of recruitment in the background. We believe that Nick Chester, who was the former technical director at Lotus and Renault, is one of those names. John McWilliam as well, former designer for teams like for Force India, Jordan, and Manor. Huge amounts of F1 experience there. And if those are sort of two names that are kind of headlining it, there's a lot of other people surely with F1 experience as well that have all been kind of tempted by this project. So that's not in doubt. It is slightly strange that we have this situation where FIA and the FOM have kind of diverged quite considerably. This is, again, it's going to take some unpicking, and I think FOM are going to have to be sort of wholly convinced by the value that Andretti brings, because that's one of the main gripes of the team. What if they're open to an 11th team, if it adds value, if it grows the pie, as many team principals have said? And we all know that that's just a sort of allegory for, can they bring lots of money? Obviously you can look at some of the existing teams and say, well, what do they bring? There are a couple out there that don't maybe add much commercial value, and maybe Andretti can bring more. And I think if it can prove that it can bring more, then it's a very credible entrance to Formula One.
That sounds really interesting, JBL, and thank you for joining me to talk about this breaking news. Hopefully it will all become clearer in the coming weeks, and please do comment below who you would like to see drive for the Andretti Formula One team. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can follow all the developments on this story on Autosport and motorsport.com. But for the moment, thank you for watching. Yay.